Hey everyone, welcome to Behind the Screen. I am your host and Dungeon Master, Cranio Dad. What I like to do is I like to kind of do an autopsy of the episode from the weekend to let you guys know how things looked on my side of the screen, as well as to how those things that the players did impacted some future planning that I have to do and take into account going forward. That's not to say that this is filled with spoilers. I actually don't mind if my players watch this whatsoever, because I do a pretty good job of threading the needle when it comes to what I'm going to be able to do, what I really am going to do, and how those two are joined together. So, again, sorry for the late start this evening. I had a really weird headache that started right behind the eye and wrapped around the head and made me wind up just laying down on the couch for like 45 minutes, unable to move. It was a lot of fun. I'm not sure if it was a migraine or something else, but we shall see as time goes on. That being said, thank you for being here. I do greatly appreciate it. So let me go ahead and launch the intro, and then we'll get right back into the show. So see you guys in about a minute and 20 seconds. Ooh, spooky. Hey everyone, and now let's go ahead and dive on into the show. Let me check my audio levels really quick so you hear a little bit of doubling, and I apologize for that. But I do need to check where I am at. Yeah, still a little soft, but that's okay. I've got some plans for that in the near future when it comes to my setup. So anyway, let's dive on in. So this past week we had episode 3, but session 2 of Ghost of Saltmarsh. Now the book came out a couple weeks ago, and I've been preparing with these players for a better part of a month for this adventure, and we had our session 0, which was amazing, and it gave me a lot of really good insight into how the players plan on playing. Then we had session 1 where they actually made it to Saltmarsh. They met Varus Nightbreeze, who is their new benefactor, and they were sent on a mission to look into issues going on with the haunted house up on the hill. And they made their way up to the house after interrogating a suspect who was a poacher and was facing the death penalty for poaching. And they fell down a well and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. And then they finally entered the house with this session. So let's go ahead and dive on in to... I need to do this really quick because, planning. That's how I do things, right? Where am I at? Let's dive on into the autopsy portion of this evening. So, the players made their way through the house, and one of the things that I noticed about the book is something that I found very disconcerting from the onset. I think the writing, all in all, is actually really good. Probably one of the better written stories that I have read out of all the ones that I have read from Wizards of the Coast. However, they have this penchant for expecting the players to come in through one way and then giving them keys that will give them entrance into another part. So in this case, the story in its entirety was outlined for the players to walk through the front door, But if they spent any time doing any investigation whatsoever, they would have found that the front door was locked and bolted and barred, and that there was a side entrance to the kitchen, that the door itself was unlocked and easily to open. And that was the whole hook from the poacher, which I found really confusing. So when you were looking at my screen, which is what you guys see here on stream, when it comes to the map, you see that the rooms are numbered in a way that doesn't make any sense. They are entering from the front, which they wouldn't be able to enter without actually kicking down the door. And I had them entering from the kitchen because that's where it made sense from the storyline. But because of that ordering, all the canned descriptions were set to be in that order. So I had to think on my feet a little bit because I forgot about that when I was reading through the descriptions. But it's neither here nor there. The players did a really good job, I think, of dealing with the situation of entering a house under suspicion. They tried to move quietly. I tried to give them some cues that they needed to use stealth, but they didn't. And I think that's fair. I think that they are under the assumption that there's nothing really going on with this house. If anything, it's haunted, so they're kind of screwed to begin with because as a level 2 character dealing with most ghosts, ghouls, specters, and spirits, they're not going to fare too well. So they entered the house as quietly as I think they deemed appropriate, and I really do. I think the way that they entered made perfect sense. And they made their way through the kitchen. They found the footprints. They dealt with the giant centipedes. And then the party started to split, which I was mentally prepared for, but I still think that wasn't quite enough preparation. And they wanted to explore. And again, I think that makes valid sense. They look in the room. They see their two fighters that are able to deal some of the most damage that has been dealt thus far in the campaign, dealing with 4 giant centipedes, which are pretty low-level creatures. And like, okay, cool. These guys have got it. I want to see what else is going on in this house to make sure that we don't have anybody sneaking up behind us. Brilliant call. We had one of the players stabbing the walls and floors in the effort to find treasure. Again, it makes sense for what they know. And a lot of investigation going on. So all in all, I think they did really well. They dealt with the centipedes about as well as they could have. I think the room being small, the fact that by the time the other players made it in there was already a couple that were down, I think it made perfect sense. They had a little bit of problem trying to open doors, but I think as you play D&D, you realize that there's always a likelihood that doors become a trope as something that is more difficult than the entire room. So they dealt with the doors fairly well. They entered a few rooms and then they investigated the house the way that, in my opinion, the story should have been written, to start back in the kitchen and work your way forward. Now, I spent a fair amount of time the last few weeks preparing for the upper floors of the house, and I think that I perhaps missed on some descriptions when it came to giving the players some visual cues to drive the story the way that it was intended as written. They did a really good job of taking a long or short rest in that front foyer, and I think that was well timed. They also did a really good job of picking up a trail and starting to follow a trail. Now, they had already realized that they were backtracking a trail, and they had dealt with a scream that was because of a spell going down some stairs back in the scullery, and they wanted to see where the other trail went. Now, I had done, again, a lot of prep for them to go upstairs and deal with the rooms upstairs, but they wanted to follow that trail and take it to where it was. And incidentally, that trail leads them down to the basement. Now, I had looked at the basement. I was aware of what was going on down there. I've read through the book a couple of times, and I've read through this chapter a few times. But I wasn't mentally prepared as a DM to have the players open the trapdoor and jump on down and engage. But we rolled with it, and the players wound up going down to the basement, which is supposed to be after they clear the top part of the house. They get a little bit more information. So we'll see if they wind up going back or not. And that's supposed to give them more information about what's going on downstairs. But right now they're kind of going in with the assumption that this is the problem with the house. They are not sure if it is or is not. And that will remain to be seen based on what they discover. They did a really good job of dealing with confined area and combat and being creative with the space. I allowed them to take liberties when it came to spatial movement, of jumping downstairs where there was probably a wall or things along those lines. I rather play the narrative versus the fixture itself. And if it makes sense in some way, shape, or form or logic, then it makes sense to me. So I allowed the players to be able to not necessarily get off the stairs a lot easier than what they should have been able to. But again, that's my choice as DM, and I love watching the way that they deal with things. They dealt with the bandits very well. Then they were a little led astray by a little bit of my misplanning, and that's on me. But they wound up dealing with the room, looking at this person who they were able to get some information. They got a bullseye lantern, they got some candles, they got a code book for communication with a ship offshore and what the signals are supposed to be. And they probably have no idea what that has to do with yet. And that's okay. I think they would have a little bit of information had they gone upstairs. But either way, I could wrap the story up kind of neat and tidy as things continue on. Then they very cautiously and very carefully entered a room full of skeletons, and they dealt with them extremely well. I think for a confined space, having the players deal with having to get stacked on the door and trying to move through space, they did a really good job of mitigating a lot of the problems that I think a lot of new players would have in that situation. I have the benefit of having a party of people who have been playing D&D for a while and play D&D a lot. And play for multiple different DMs. So I think that has been a little bit of saving grace when it comes to situations that I am a little bit tenuous about them getting into, because I still have in my mind that these are level 2 characters, that this is a new story, that this is a new group for me. But they always and eternally surprise me. I can't say enough about how awesome they handle a lot of situations that would probably take most tables an hour in and of themselves to resolve. When you have a confined space with a single entry point with multiple bad guys as targets that aren't converging the way that you would think they would, because they're a little smarter, they're a little bit more protective, and it's a trigger for something else. Normally you deal with a lot of, well, I need to be able to move here. Can I move here? No, I can't. Can I see this? No, I can't. But instead they're casting light. They've got light sources going. They're able to stack and move the way that they should. They enter the room through the funnel, not getting caught up in the choke point, which I think is and was critical to there not being a lot worse that had happened. And with the skeletons, there was a ton of hilarity. I cannot get over how well this group gels with each other and how they just kind of pick it up and run with it. I mean, it's there's been some comments on our Discord chat back and forth post game about some of the plans that they have, and I look forward to all of it. I love seeing the chaos they want to bring into this game. So they dealt with it really well, and I was able to time it in such a way that we ended on yet another cliffhanger. A secret door opens, and the skeletal figure walks out with a blue, wispy, glowy beard and a pointy hat, and he raises his hand and he speaks at them, and that's where we ended. And they made a significant dent in the amount of story for chapter 2 of Ghost of Saltmarsh. There wasn't really a lot that they did wrong, with the exception of, in my opinion, not investigating upstairs. I think that as a tactician, they did a lot of stuff that made perfect sense tactically, to where, hey, these guys have got these giant centipedes. Let's go clear these rooms. I don't want anybody sneaking up behind us. And then they just follow a trail to another room, totally excluding the entire upstairs and the entire other wing of the house, to make sure that it was clear, so they're not getting snuck up on. And that's probably going to come back to bite them in the butt this upcoming weekend. But we shall see. I don't think it will be devastating. I'm not talking TPK-wise. But they had the right methodology coming down the hall and clearing the rooms and looking for things as they went along. But I think that had they expanded that methodology a little bit, they'd have a little bit more understanding about what's going on at the house, and B, they would have a little bit more assurance that they're not going to get snuck up on from behind. So, yeah. But I'm the DM, and that's how things roll. On top of that, we were able to do the 100 follower giveaway, which was great. I was very happy to get all of those items out in the mail, thanks to my wife today. And a couple of them had to be ordered, and they're on their way. I still have a few prizes to hand deliver to some people here that are local, so I'm looking to get those out of my house sometime soon. And we also launched the big goal for the extra copy of Ghost of Saltmarsh that I have. And then that is going to spurn off into probably a long-standing giveaway that we're going to do on our channel. And that's going to be based on pretty much bits throughout eternity. I've got some ideas of some stuff that I'm kind of just running through my head. I reached out to some folks, and they like the idea as well. So we'll see what we can do. So all in all, a fantastic episode. There was some great role playing. There was a lot of really good communication, a lot of really good character play. So there's role playing within the group and role playing as individuals. And I think they knocked both out of the park this past week. It was an all in all enjoyable episode. We didn't have nearly the technical issues that we had the week before, but we might have those technical issues this weekend. I did mention, and we'll talk about that in planning, so I'll hold off on that, about the potential technical issues that we will have. But again, all in all, I think the players are rocking it. We are running a little bit further behind than I thought we could, but I'm also well aware of the fact that they are filling out their characters, filling out the party, and filling out this storyline. My prediction is that we're about 2 full episodes away from being able to close the book on Chapter 2. Because again, Chapter 1 of Ghost of Saltmarsh is all about all the crap that's going on in Saltmarsh. It's the area, the people, the politics, the crime, and everything that exists within Saltmarsh that's kind of driving this storyline. So it's all for the DM, and it all gets trickled out in time. I am looking forward to some more interplay within the town, and that's going to happen once they are done with the house, which they are not done with the house. But I have been hearing from the players that it'd be really cool to turn this into a base of operations, and I've been skimming through the notes, and I've got some crazy ideas, and they may get what they want, but they may not want what they get. So we shall see about that. I love the idea, but let's see if we can make it practical. So yeah, that's all I've got for the autopsy. I'd like to keep this thing at about 45 minutes because I don't want to belabor your evening as a viewer. I also want to make it something that's consumable on video on demand really quick. Eventually I want to pull all this stuff down and put it on YouTube. I just haven't had the time nor mental bandwidth to do that. It really won't take me long. I used to do it for my Friday night group. I just keep forgetting to hit record, which is a button I literally have that I can look at right here, which it literally does 90% of the process for me. So I'm probably going to pull these down maybe this week and get them over on the YouTube channel for Harlequin's Requital, which I'm probably going to rebrand just to make it more of a brand. But yeah, so let's go ahead and stop talking about the autopsy and start talking about planning and prep. So how did the things that they do, how are the things that they did going to change some of the things they have planned? Well, in all actuality, not that much. There are some things that they missed upstairs, like upstairs, and in the other wing of the house that are probably going to come into play. I'm going to set some percentile limits and see if they come into play during the fight that they're getting ready to get into, which is going to be a pretty heavy fight. So I'm setting a pretty a low percentage point for that. But I think that all in all, there's not a lot of planning and prep storyline wise that I need to do because of anything that they did. Like I said, just some minor adjustments with maybe bringing some of the things down from upstairs, or maybe seeing what happens when they reach the end. They may have to fight to get back out. So we'll play that by ear and see how that goes. I mentioned the technical issues. So on stream, I mentioned that my family is taking a vacation this upcoming weekend. We're going to a location that requires me to use a MiFi device for internet. And I have been unable to successfully test this MiFi device at this area and have successful internet with bandwidth enough for me in order to broadcast. So thank you. I love my new background scene. But if you do not follow me on Twitter, this is not a pitch for me to gain Twitter followers because I just use this as a form of communication. That would be the best place to find out. I will tweet out if we are going to play or if not. as early as I possibly can. I've already spoken with a couple people from the party, and I want to try to sync up with them earlier than normal just to see how everything is working on my end. Because if I run into too many technical issues, I'm not going to put myself through the stress. It's not going to give you guys the game that you want. It's not going to be a good game for the players. We would just call it for the night, and we would call it as early as possible so that way everybody has their evening back. So that's the only real major thing for planning and prep that I'm even remotely worried about. And whatever I learn this upcoming weekend is going to make it to where I will still be able to do things like this, like go on vacations, and still be able to play D&D, which is the whole reason that I have most of the things that I have. So if I don't get this right, I'm pretty sure that my lovely bride, Creating Mom 12 in chat, will have a lot to say about the money that I have spent on the things that I have purchased to make this happen. So fingers crossed that all works out. We will see. Yeah, I just wanted to keep this. This one's going to be about a 30-minute video, which is fine. Normally, like I said, 30 to 45 minutes. It's a chance for you guys to engage with me as the DM. So if you have any questions, now's a really good time to ask. Because if not, I'm probably going to shut this down in about 5 minutes or so and go ahead and prepare to launch for Sea of Thieves. But yeah, I think I want to try to settle in on Mondays for this. It's just currently the day until I think September that will work out well for making this happen based on things we have going on here at the house and the fact that, you know, we have the 4 amazing children and 2 puppies. Well, 1 puppy and 1 dog, but whatever. That it just works out well for my schedule, so I might try to stick with it being Mondays, which means I'll be able to publicize that a lot more. So I know there's some people who normally like to watch, and I haven't seen them throw open chat yet, so we'll go with that. All right, so since there are no questions at this point in time, I'm going to leave you guys with the intro again because I absolutely friggin' love it. I'll leave it with the intro while I'm getting ready to launch a raid, so you'll see the intro and then you'll see the end screen come up. I'm going to launch a raid. I'm going to look for another channel that is playing Dungeons & Dragons and hopefully is live because I hate raiding channels that are doing reruns. But anyway, thank you so much for hanging out tonight. Whether you're watching this live or watching this on demand or eventually watching this on YouTube, I appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you guys Monday through Friday here on Cranio Dad, my channel here on Twitch, where I play Sea of Thieves, and then again on Saturdays when we do Dungeons & Dragons. Word of note that Sea of Thieves is releasing an RPG in September, so look for some new interesting RPG content on this channel, probably in October or November. But anyway, all that being said, I'm going to pop over the intro again. Thank you guys for stopping by, and then we'll raid somebody really quick. Y'all have a good night.